Everybody, it's JetsCentral finally coming back with another video. I know it's been a little bit since I last posted. I was actually sick over the past few days, dealing with a little bit of a sore throat, and I couldn't really speak that well. But in any case, I'm coming back today. Glad to be back, but I'm coming back today with a pretty big question for you guys. Okay, a pretty big question that's currently being talked about, amongst Jets fans all across the world, right? Throughout Jets Nation, this is a pretty hot topic. Should the New York Jets trade inside linebacker Darron Lee? Okay, should we trade Lee, former first-round pick? I'm looking at this new coaching staff coming in the building. Adam Gase, but more specifically, Greg Williams keeping the 3-4 defense, or the 3-4 base defense the same, right? Same pretty much base defense that we ran under Todd Bowles and Rex Ryan. And you're looking at this defense, and we really only have two open slots for the inside linebacker position, right? Like every 3-4 system. And one of those positions is going to be Avery Williamson, right? Avery Williamson's coming off a really solid season. He had a lot of production, great vocal leader for this team last year, and he's still a young player. And we signed him 2 years, or not a few weeks ago, but the year before that, last March, to a multi-year contract. Okay, so Williamson is definitely going to be in the fold. He's going to be in the plans for the Jets moving forward. So he's going to be starting one of those spots, right? One of those spots are going to be locked up by Avery. And then the other spot, you could be asking yourself, all right, well, Darron Lee, former first-round pick, he does have some upside. What about that other spot? Well, we just brought in C.J. Mosley to fill that other one, that other inside linebacker position, and he is one of the game's best, right? He is one of the best inside linebackers in the game today, right? Multiple Pro Bowler, and we signed him to a mega deal, a 5-year contract, I believe worth $85 million, so he is definitely playing. So now it begs the question, what's going to happen with Lee? All right, now, really two things could happen. Number one, Greg Williams could be looking at Darron Lee as a possible position change, right? Because Darron Lee, he does have upside. Lee's not some horrible player. He's not a complete liability. He does have speed. He does have quickness. He is undersized for that inside linebacker position, but in today's kind of game where a lot of teams run the 3-by-1, 11 personnel type offenses, he is built for today's game, right? What you see, the LA Rams, the Chiefs, the Saints a little bit. Everybody's always talking about how the NFL is shifting over more of a passing league. Lee is more of a fit for today's game. So Williams could want to keep him, in the plans moving forward. So Darron Lee could be a positional change, right? Maybe moving him to outside linebacker, a position that we're extremely weak in. Maybe as a third down kind of rush the passer guy, even though he hasn't really done that at the next level. So Darron Lee right now, it's really up in the air on what's going to happen, right? So that's option number one. Change Darron Lee's position, because I really doubt the Jets would want to take Darron Lee, a former first-round pick, and just demote him to backup and keep him on the bench and just not do anything with him and just let him rot away. I don't really see the Jets doing that. I think if the Jets want to keep him, we're going to change his position, the outside linebacker, whether it's like an edge rusher on a third down or whatever the case is. I don't really know. Maybe a guy that comes in and covers tight ends. I'm not really sure exactly what to do with Darron Lee, because he does have, like I said before, he does have upside. He is quick, he is fast, and he is built for today's game. But the other option, okay, the more intriguing option, is to trade Darron Lee and flip him for another draft pick, or even possibly a player. All right, because the Jets still do have a lot of holes. All right, we still lack outside linebacker depth. We lack cornerback depth. There's still a lot of positions on the team, offensive line, and wide receiver as well, where we don't have a lot of talent. Okay, so could we possibly take Darron Lee, say to ourselves, hey, look, we have 3 starting capable inside linebackers. Let's take one of them, Darron Lee, the youngest out of the group, and flip him for a pick to now bolster another area of this team, cornerback, offensive line, whatever the case is. That could definitely be in the plans of the Jets moving forward, all right? And when you get down to brass tacks, it makes a lot of sense, all right? It makes a ton of sense for this New York Jets team to do that, especially on maybe like a draft day, to flip Darron Lee for maybe a 5th-round pick, maybe a 4th-round pick at best. I see a lot of people out there saying that Darron Lee is worth like a high 2nd-round pick. I personally don't see that at all. I think the Jets, if we're lucky, I honestly think if Mike McCagnon is lucky, Adam Gase on draft night, if we could flip Darron Lee for a 4th-round pick, that's pretty good value. Okay, that's pretty good value. whenever a franchise has an opportunity to get more draft picks, what does that mean? It means more, high caliber players coming out of college, more elite players coming out of college, entering your locker room, and you're signing them on a cheap deal for multiple years. All right. So Adam Gase, if they have their eyes set on a guy in the 4th, 5th round, and they see an opportunity to trade Darron Lee to a team, and we see draft day trades all the time. Whether teams are moving up, teams are moving back, teams are flipping players for picks, whatever the case is. It's not uncommon, right? It's not a rare occurrence that you see a draft day trade. I think Martavis Bryant actually got traded last year on draft night. To the Oakland Raiders, from the Steelers to the Raiders. But in any case, it's not a rare thing. So could this happen? And I very well think that I truly do believe that there's a really high chance that Lee could be traded. Okay, and I cannot wait to hear your thoughts on it as well. I personally, if I was running the New York Jets, I would test the waters. I would make a few calls. I'd make a few calls to the teams out there that might be old at the position, or whether they're old at the position or they don't have a lot of depth at that position. If the 49ers would have made a lot of sense, but they went out and they added some nice pieces in the offseason. But Darron Lee, right now, there are probably a few teams out there. I want to see. I look at the Seahawks as a potential candidate because they could use a nice young linebacker that could fly around, make plays. And the one thing is about Darron Lee, I don't want to go as far as to call him a bust, all right? Because Darron Lee's not a bust. He still has potential. This is a guy right now who could get traded to another team, whether it's the Seahawks or whoever it is. The Saints. The Saints is another team that I feel like could use Darron Lee pretty well, kind of as that like sub-package guy, especially in coverage. But Darron Lee, he still has upside. This is a guy who could go to another team, Saints, Seahawks, whatever it is, and flourish, become one of the better linebackers in the league, because this guy was picked in the 1st round for a reason. Now, he did have red flags coming out of college, and he has had some hiccups in the league, whether it's inconsistent play, whether it was the suspension, whether it's his lack of maturity, off the field, whether it's on social media, what have you. There has been some red flags that have kind of popped up here and there, and that could, those factors could play into, reasons why the Jets would want to move Lee. But I think at the end of the day, we're going to move into the season as, or with Mosley and Williamson as the starting inside linebackers, so Lee could be on his way out. If he's not traded, I could see him be getting a position change, right, or his position change rather, moving him to maybe an outside linebacker position as that like hybrid, like Leo position. I don't know exactly what you could do with Darron Lee, but if Greg Williams wants to keep him in the building and wants to get creative with him, he could very well do that, because Lee is versatile, right? Lee is versatile. He played quarterback in high school, and this is a guy who, he's definitely moved around. He hasn't been playing inside linebacker for that long. Remember that. When he was playing, inside linebacker at Ohio State, he wasn't dominating in high school. He wasn't doing that early on in his career at Ohio State. This was a position for him that he picked up late on. So he doesn't really have a lot of experience doing it. Okay, he does not have a lot of experience, thus making his ceiling extremely high. So I look at all those factors, and I think at the end of the day, if I was running the Jets, I would test the waters, and I would look to trade him on draft night for possibly a 4th round to 5th round pick. That's really the sweet spot. I think, if we're lucky, 4th round is definitely the better of the two, but I think in a more realistic world, a 5th round to 6th round pick is probably where he would get traded for, okay, if a team's not desperate out there. So I'll leave it there. Let me know your thoughts down below, and as always, thanks so much for watching, and go Jets.